Welcome to 7 Investing Now, a show that teaches you how to take a long-term view on investing by better understanding what's happening in the market now.
Good afternoon, 7 investors, and welcome to the Friday edition of 7 Investing Now. My name, of course, is Daniel Brooks-Klein. I'm the host of the program, and I'm being joined today by Steve Symington. We're going to talk about Zillow, we're going to talk about iBuying, and later on in the program, Spencer Randall, our partner from CryptoEQ, is going to join us. I hope in a question mark suit, but probably not. And we're going to talk about the Metaverse. I don't really understand what the Metaverse is, why I would want to be there. I like the actual universe that we live in, but he is going to explain all of that. Though that being said, Steve, my house is infested with ants, and I had an exterminator in today, and I'm guessing my virtual house in the Metaverse would not have that problem. Steve, are ants an issue there, or do they all freeze to death in Montana?
I feel like there might be something like creepers in Minecraft or something. You could have digital monsters if you really wanted to, but I suppose if you didn't want it to be an option, it didn't need to be.
Digimon are digital monsters, and monsters are the champions. I heard that commercial so many times when my son was young. It is just completely in my head. But that's not the topic. We had some pretty shocking news from Zillow this week. Steve, I'm going to resist the urge to say I told you so, but I will say I did about 800 shows over the past 2 years. That's an exaggeration, but I did a lot where I told very smart people, some of my best friends in the world, that, I don't think this is going to be a great business. Margins are really tight. It's really volatile. It's really hard to make money. And I don't like to be right. It's actually easy to be right when you're contrarian, which I tend to be. So I'm not taking huge credit here. But Steve, what happened with Zillow? And we, of course, would love your questions and comments if you want to weigh in.
So there's some nuance there, right, with the iBuying industry in general. And we'll get to that in a minute. But starting with Zillow, this was just shocking in more ways than one, because Zillow came out and announced. So for perspective, let's start just a couple of weeks ago. They announced that they were putting home purchases on pause through their Zillow Offers iBuying business. And that was somewhat surprising, but not really. They blamed basically a lack of labor available in the market to be able to fix up the homes they'd already purchased. So that was interesting, kind of raised some eyebrows, and we said, okay, temporary pause. And then just a couple weeks later, several days ago, Bloomberg came out and reported that Zillow was trying to sell 7,000 homes at a loss, essentially. And that raised more eyebrows because Zillow ended last quarter with about 3,100 homes on its inventory. Oh my gosh, how are they trying to sell 7,000? Kind of stunning news there. But then Zillow followed up a day later and said, we are suspending Zillow Offers indefinitely. The market is way too volatile for our algorithms. And they also revealed that they ended the quarter with over 9,790 homes on inventory. Bonkers. They bought almost 9,700 homes during the quarter, sold only 3,000 in the process. And basically, they said it was an admission that their algorithms had failed them spectacularly. So it was really kind of remarkable in the sense that everything was going splendidly with the re-ramp of Zillow Offers. Even earlier this year was a source of strength, and the margins were moving in the right direction. The economics of the business were kind of moving exactly where Zillow's management said it would. They said within 2 to 4 years, this is last year, they expected it to be a $20 billion revenue run rate business with reasonably attractive economics. So kind of interesting how it was moving in the right direction. But then you have to admit, this isn't a normal real estate market, right? That's the hard part.
But there's never a normal real estate market. And that's the problem, is that, look, when we moved from Connecticut, we sold our house in like the 3 weeks where the market was terrible, and it probably cost us like $25,000.
Yeah.
If we had literally been able to sell a month later. We didn't know that, of course, or because we could have just waited, but we didn't. Yeah. Real estate is always volatile. So when you're doing iBuying, here's what you do. You buy a house at, let's say, at 7 to 10%, because it's about a 6% real estate commission. They take a little bit more, about somewhere between 6 and 10% less than what the going market rate would be. Yeah. And then in theory, they put some money into it. That's always difficult because, Steve, I might put in beautiful granite countertops and you want poured concrete. So whether that's valuable to the person or not is an issue. And then they resell it. So that means they're hoping that the market goes up a little while they own it, that the work they did adds some value to the price. But if it doesn't, if the market stays flat, or goes down a little bit, the margins you're talking about are really small. But Steve, is there a
Right.
tactical error here? If they had just said we're pausing and not
they
said we're
had said that,
canceling,
and it
wouldn't
seems like it was like just the last couple of weeks. It was a huge about face. That's the thing. They went from we're suspending purchases through the end of the year to we're done for good. And I mean, they're eating it hard. There was a $304 million write down in inventory on the homes in their inventory, generated an adjusted EBITDA loss of $381 million for just that segment alone this quarter. And that was the bizarre part, was that it was such an about face. And I think this is, at least at this stage, it seems like a very Zillow specific thing, right? Not the market conditions, obviously. All the iBuyers like Redfin and Opendoor are struggling with the same market conditions, but I've read reports that, and we need to confirm this still, but Opendoor and Redfin were being more conservative about their iBuying, kind of scaling things back because of the volatility, where Zillow appeared to have leaned harder on its algorithms to kind of pull it through and hopefully extend, kind of its gains in ramping this. And, if anyone's supposed to have a front row seat to how the real estate market is working, it should be Zillow, right? They boast that they had 11 million machine learning models running every single night to update their Z estimates. And they said within, like 90 or 95% of their Z estimates were within 5% of the actual house's value. And it sort of held true until it didn't. And then Zillow said that a lot more people accepted their Z offers, the Zillow offers offer, than they expected, which is why they ended up purchasing almost 10,000 homes this quarter, because they said, whoops, like we shouldn't have accepted all those offers. And of course, people are looking at this saying, Zillow's offering me what for my house? Yeah, I'll take it. But what's also crazy is they have almost 8,200 homes under contract at the end of the quarter that they say, you know what, we're going to fulfill those contracts, and it's going to take several quarters to wind it down. They're also laying off 25% of their workforce over the next several quarters. So it's going to be a slog for Zillow from here. And man, what a painful, shocking announcement for this. And hey, I'll give you that. I told you so. I don't think it necessarily translates to Opendoor and Redfin. I think they've been more conservative, at least from early reports, but yet to confirm that. Should be interesting to watch those two as well.
So when we sold our condo, Steve, I explored some, I always thought it was Zestimate, but Z estimate makes a lot more sense. We explored some people, just buying it for cash. And the ones who were doing it were buying it at well below market. And that makes sense. If you could buy, we sold for like, I don't know, 330, 340, I forget the exact number. And if you can buy that for like 300, well, that gives you a lot of leeway, especially because our place didn't particularly need any work. It was very neutral, very, very basic. But the offers we got were like 260. Like they were dreadful. Yeah. Now, if we needed cash, or if we had paid cash, or maybe if we bought 20 years ago and we paid 30 grand for it, now it was worth that, it wouldn't matter, or we were trying to buy something. But Steve, is this a case of Zillow had to do this, or like all of Zillow goes out of business?
I think, the way they put it was that the volatility and the potential negative impact on their business from quarter to quarter was so much greater than they expected, that they said, you know what, this isn't worth it, which is just a shocking admission for a business that they had touted as potentially, looking at this, Zillow from its lows in March had like quadrupled, quintupled by this past February. And then as this kind of unfolded, it's pulled back really hard. It's trading up kind of modestly from early 2020 levels. And I think Zillow, to be fair, they still have a relatively healthy core business with their premium agents, advertising, and their ability to generate modest growth from that. I think they said their premium agents ad business was up like 16% year over year, and their mortgages business, which is still very tiny, was up like 30%. They have some bets and rentals as well, but this is a fundamentally different business. If you're a Zillow shareholder, from the one that they were touting earlier this year even, and without this incremental growth, it definitely changes the story here. And I would lean harder toward those businesses that are maybe still in the iBuying race, because I do think there are some companies that can potentially win in this space by being conservative and maybe not leaning so hard on an algorithm to determine whether you should buy those, because that's proven to be a extraordinarily difficult task. And it's Zillow basically just threw in the towel and and said, you know what, we're going to focus on our core business. So that's tough.
We will get to Spencer Randall in just a few minutes. But Steve, I actually think the business here, and I would argue that Zillow is a nice business, not a great investment. The business here isn't selling houses. You're playing with 6%. They are disrupting something that costs 6%. And I would argue that 6% is really worth it in a difficult real estate market. Like my agent helped me buy our vacation property, and we never would have got it. And so that 6% is totally worth it. But that being said, I'm actually really bullish on all the ancillary things Zillow could sell you. You know, your commission on a mortgage is basically a mortgage payment. You can take a commission on a home inspection, on insurance, and the ongoing, payment on that. I actually think Zillow could use that to like figure out ways to sell like home warranties, and who knows, like maybe they could sell you the Roomba subscription plan. Like, isn't that sort of like where they're going to go, like a sort of like one-stop shop for all things new house related?
Yeah, I mean, one-stop shop for all things new house related, with the exception of actually purchasing that house now, is where they are. And I would say that 6% model is ripe for disruption, because there's an increasing number of people who believe it's not worth it, whether or not, you're someone who does a lot of real estate transactions, right? So, you kind of uniquely understand the value that a good real estate agent provides. But a company like Redfin, they can actually step out and say, you know what, we'll charge you 1% or 1.5% on both sides of the transaction if you do it with our agents. That's a really interesting model that could take a lot of market share from the traditional 6% kind of group. But what was interesting about iBuying specifically is when these companies buy it, they're not charging that lower commission to buy or sell it. And a lot of these sellers were actually willing to accept 7 to 9% commissions for the relative convenience of being able to have a company that buys your house and does all the repairs for you. You just don't have to do anything. You accept a slightly lower offer at a slightly higher commission. You eat that and say, you know what, convenience is worth it. That was the attractiveness of the iBuying model, was even at a higher commission, people are willing to bite that bullet. But yeah, so I think it kind of shifts the dynamic of the industry and potentially makes the existing remaining iBuyers a little bit stronger for their ability to not have to compete with Zillow, which was just driving prices up unintentionally.
And private money is driving prices up. That's the problem in the resort market. And I would argue that the Redfins of the world, and we're going to move off this in a second, but the Redfins of the world will kill all the bad real estate agents, which might stop some of them from later growing into good real estate agents, but they're not necessarily going to handle like a difficult house to sell or buying in a competitive market. I want to take this comment from ZL because it touches upon something. It's not what we've been talking about, but Sam, if you want to bring that up. Do you guys have a price target for Facebook? Market cap is around 900 billion. How much higher can it go? We do not do price targets. What we do at 7 Investing is we look at a company, we look at its total addressable market, we look at its valuation, we look at its management, we look at all the different things it can do and go, is this a company we believe can grow? Facebook is not a company I'm particularly a fan of. We're going to talk about it a little bit with Spencer Randall. But it is a company that you could make an argument could be 3 times bigger, could be 5 times bigger. I'm not saying it will. I don't particularly like what they're doing, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But Steve, wanted to give you a chance here.
Yeah. So, if you look at our frequently asked questions, we have one frequently asked questions article on the 7investing.com website called "Why Doesn't 7 Investing Assign Price Targets?" And we go into kind of some great detail. And the big reason is that price targets vary based on the inputs and vary widely. So that's why you'll see analysts who might have, a price target for Tesla anywhere between $15 a share and $1,000, right back when it was pre-split. And because
if you see it at 15, buy it. Like that's
yeah, unless it's like a 20-to-1 split or something. But you'll never see us assign a specific price target to the companies that we recommend. Rather, we focus on the long-term growth stories and their potential to increase their share price relative to their current valuation. So we recognize that price targets tend to be an exercise in futility and can vary widely based on the inputs that you place in those. So.
They can also stop you from buying really good companies. So what do we do at 7 Investing? We offer our 7 best stock picks each month. So each advisor makes a pick. It's our highest conviction pick. And then we do a write-up on that pick, a big, expansive, like you could just read the key takeaways, you could read the valuation, you could read the management, you could read all of it. I today, Steve, worked on my transcript because on the 8th of the month, we add transcripts for the videos we record, which is basically we pitch everybody. And one of them this month got heated. I say heated, that's a negative word. It was very friendly heated, but there was definitely one of our advisors pushed back very hard on one of the picks. So you don't just get the bull case. You also get the bear case. You get what we don't like. How do you become a member? There are two ways to do that. First, the easy way. You go to 7investing.com/subscribe. There you can join for $49 a month or, and this is the deal, $399 a year. That is the amazing, easy way to do it. The other way to do it is to find Steve on the street and hand him $49 every month. That's very tricky. So
I'll set you up.
We recommend you go to 7investing.com/subscribe to join. We also have an $84 a year student membership. You have to be an actively enrolled student. You can buy it for a student, but it has to be an actively enrolled student at any level of education. So you can be getting your master's degree. You are a student. You can be in culinary school. Steve, do we count culinary school as education? We are open. You could be studying to become the rug doctor. What? No, that probably does not work. But if you have trouble with that, shoot us an email at info@7investing.com. At this time, let us welcome our good friend, Spencer Randall. He is one of the founders of CryptoEQ. Spencer, how are you today?
Happy Friday. It's a pleasure to be here.
We are glad to have you. We're going to talk about Meta, Facebook, and the Metaverse. This sounds like something out of a Marvel movie. Like if you told me that Ultron was going to take over the Metaverse, I would not be at all surprised. But that's not what's happening here. But why don't we start, Spencer? And Steve, jump in wherever you want here. Why don't we start with what is the Metaverse?
Yeah, so we've been doing a lot of content on this lately, and I think the best frame of reference for people is the movie Ready Player One. So like when I say the word Metaverse in like a live stream or a Twitter space, most people ask, "Hey, is this like that movie that came out a few years ago called, what is it, Ready Play?" And so yes, I would say that the Metaverse could be a lot like what plays out in that film, in that there's headsets and there's augmented reality and there's virtual reality, and it's very immersive. I think, having watched the whole keynote from Meta and Facebook and Mark and the team, it feels like a continuation of technological advancement. It feels like a more immersive experience where the focal point isn't necessarily the device or devices. We're all looking at screens in this present moment, but an integration of the headset, making you feel more like it's in person. So it's like in my mind, it's an adaptation of what we call the meet space, the physical space that, Dan, I know you opened the show. You like the in-person stuff. It's an integration of the meet space with the internet and technology, and what I see as the advancement of interaction.
If you'd like to meet me, I will be in Las Vegas next week. Shoot me a DM. Happy to buy you a cup of coffee. There might be someone else with me who would be enjoyable to meet from our past world. That being said, so I want to hit a couple of points here. We've been promised this since like 1982. Like, you'd go to arcades back in the early days and there'd be headsets. And is there any proof that people actually want this? Because I see some business uses. Like, I'll go to a board meeting, or I'm not on any boards. I'll go to a meeting where it feels like we're all in the same room, and I guess we all walk over and get virtual snacks together. Like, I'm not sure what happens there. I'll maybe get together with like some friends to play poker. Like, that seems kind of cool. But for the most part, this seems like it's very niche. And by the way, the book Ready Player One, not the movie Ready Player One. It was a book long before, also written by Ernest Cline, who is not related, not spelled the same way, and I've never read it. So that's also a pretty bleak future. Are we sure people want this?
So great point about it was a book before a film. Definitely take that one. I think the film's a nice reference because you can get the visualization and the immersiveness. Is the market ready for this? Great question. Well, let's look where we have some traction. And so for how this ties into CryptoEQ and our research is there's a lot of demand for the gaming piece. So in the keynote, gaming is touted as the biggest entertainment industry in the world. Now, if you look at the continuation of gaming, I do think that esports is incredible. I do think that immersive gaming as a theme makes sense. And I think that blockchain games are showing early stages of traction. So that's where it ties into our business at CryptoEQ, is the gaming component and the entertainment component. So of the hour and a half keynote, right? Like there's really 4 segments. There was the home, the worlds, the workrooms, and the marketplace. So those were the 4. And so where do I think adoption would occur first? To me, it would be the worlds. So the hobbyists and the entertainment piece, the fun piece, and the marketplace for creators. So that's where I think we could have traction early. And if you look at the gaming component within the virtual worlds piece, on the blockchain side, we already have some traction. So the best piece of data I could point to say, does the market want this, would be Axie Infinity's millions of active users. So that would be, the one place I would start if folks are wanting to look more into this, would be blockchain gaming, and specifically Axie Infinity, as a tie into the metaverse.
Steve, let me jump in here. Are your kids doing anything in the so-called metaverse? Are they playing Roblox, which I would say is at least metaverse adjacent?
Oh, yes. It's kind of stunning to me to see how quickly they're willing to adopt these new technologies, right? Like I several months ago reached a point where my kids have, they've known songs that are out there now popular on the radio for 6 months, right? So like I feel like the old person in that sense. But yeah, I sit down and watch my 7-year-old. He hops into Roblox, picks a game, and he knows exactly what he's doing. Same thing with Minecraft and Fortnite, right? Of course, metaverse adjacent, but you make this broad enough, and I think if any company is positioned well enough, and to be clear, Facebook is now what, Meta Technologies or something. Meta is the new company name. I think if any company can do it, Facebook can. And they have the reach to play this game. But, you do see other companies also kind of positioning themselves for success, right, in the metaverse. And, I think you're going to see like NVIDIA, for example, is kind of prepping to meet demand for new computing requirements for this. And I think I read something about Microsoft. It was it Nadella, right, was stepping out and talking about their kind of efforts to prepare. And it could be huge. And maybe we've got a bunch of bitter now kind of middle to older adults who are mad that it wasn't a thing when they were, back in the 80s and 70s. But I think now it's technologically feasible. And as soon as we have big businesses plowing tens of billions of dollars into this effort, it could be really, really interesting.
So I'll throw it back to Spencer in a second. I believe in the gaming aspect. I believe in the business aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I even believe in, like we've seen with Microsoft and HoloLens, the healthcare aspect or the architectural. So all of those are uses. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I believe in the Ready Player One world where we all live in these like depressing stacked up vans and we escape to this reality. That's not a future anyone is looking for. So with Facebook here, and I want to throw out a little note to any business journalist watching. Facebook changed its corporate name to Meta. They did not change the name of the product Facebook to Meta. So they're calling the Oculus Group Meta now, but Facebook is still Facebook. So you have to, it's like when you talk about Google, the search engine, you don't call it Alphabet. So I know that's a silly, I've seen that incorrect a lot of times, but Spencer, what do you think Facebook is doing here and how is it going to work? Because this doesn't seem to me like a company that has its pulse on what actual real people want to do. That seems like something they got lucky with once and have been really bad at since then.
Yeah, Mark even said that in the keynote. He talked about how much they've been focusing on listening to feedback instead of deploying the product that people may not want. What's attractive to me is the integration with blockchain. And so they do talk about interoperability, which to that piece really ties into our research. Because if you have different virtual worlds that are built in parallel, so I'll try to give some more concrete examples. There's a project called Decentraland that is a virtual world that has an underlying crypto asset, a token that powers the economy. There's a virtual world called the Sandbox that has a blockchain component with an underlying token that powers the Sandbox economy. So if those are to integrate and those virtual worlds are be tied together by the metaverse, the universe, there has to be interoperability between those different virtual worlds if you want to teleport or planet hop. And so the mental model that I see is a company, it doesn't have to be Facebook, but a company that has network effects around a universe, a metaverse, that is specializing in tying these different virtual worlds together so that you can swap your created items, your in-game items, your art, your virtual shoes, your virtual skins, everything that you would want to exist virtually for fun between the worlds. So that's how I'm thinking about it this Friday afternoon. It's all changing so fast. And then I'd also add to Dan's point of like the end game of Ready Player One. I think that even to have meaningful adoption of the headsets themselves for gaming, we're still looking at 5 to 10 years. Like I think this is a long, long road. And I think that starting it with the fun hobby aspect of gaming as entertainment clicks for me because I'm a gamer at heart. I played a lot of games. And so that's where it clicks for me.
I do really want to meet Pac-Man, so that is a thing. But doesn't it all come down to technology? I have an Oculus. I have the early version of the Oculus, and it's like fun for like 10 minutes, but it's heavy and it's not great. So don't we need to get to sort of like Tony Stark's sunglasses land, where this is just something that's perfectly comfortable to wear? And then, yeah, like, would it be awesome if the 7 investing happy hour, we all felt like we were in the same room? I think that'd be really cool, but not if I have to wear like a 12-pound, Nintendo Virtual Boy on my head. It's really that's what, like a 90s product. It hasn't gotten that much better, except it's not just red dots. It's a pretty immersive world.
Yeah. Well, sorry to jump in.
Oh, no,
they've got about it's like they have a dozen different initiatives that they walk through in the keynote. And I would say like all of the problems are in the process of being addressed. I mean, it is a lot of product development to take a heavy clunky headset and turn it into something that is wearable and integrated and interchangeable with, say, your favorite sunglasses. So I think all the feedback's heard and they're working on it. My experience, playing around with VR headsets, they're disorienting. I agree with everything that you said. It's not something that I think I would be ready to do for hours just because of it was disorienting, but in spurts, I thought it was very exciting. And I could see it, I could see myself using one recreationally for entertainment.
I tried watching Netflix on the Oculus on a plane because it's actually a really cool way. Like if you download something, it is a really cool way to watch it. Like, because it's very immersive. It's like the problem is the device itself is so heavy if you don't have neck support. So take that to the Ray-Bans or the other things, and if you can make it, I see the promise. So talk a little bit, Spencer, then Steve, I'll let you get a word in before we close out here. What is GameFi? You put the note on the sheet here. Tell me what GameFi is and how it relates to what you guys are doing at CryptoEQ.
Yeah, so GameFi is the intersection of gaming and finance. And it's hard for us to talk about blockchain gaming without also talking about the metaverse. They're very tangential, very interrelated. To me, the GameFi movement, the blockchain gaming movement, is the idea of a direct monetization and path of a gamer's efforts. So with the explosion of Twitch, which is still certainly on the upside, still trending up, gamers are monetizing attention. But what I'm talking about is taking your actual in-game items and efforts and transacting in a blockchain-based marketplace and being compensated in real-world value in a token of your choosing for your in-game work. So that's the heart of GameFi to me. The killer app is a direct path to monetization for in-game creators and in-game players.
The token of Steve's choosing would, of course, be Chuck E. Cheese tokens. But Steve, let you get a last word in here.
Yeah, I was, I'm still kind of catching up on a conversation. There's so much to process in here. I'm sensing that I haven't watched the keynote from Facebook. I'm sensing that's worth a watch. Correct, for sure. If we have a little bit of time, did he demonstrate reskin on that keynote, or was that a separate video that he was talking about? By the way.
Well, if I'm reskin, do you mean like your ability to change an avatar?
No, like Reskin. I know Zuckerberg was subsequently talking about a new material called Reskin, Reskin, and it's like a tactile sensing suit that's really low cost to manufacture that could kind of support their metaverse ambitions for human interaction with actual objects.
So along the lines of like haptics,
yeah,
and then further, okay, yeah. So there's all these different product lines and segments within Meta's efforts, and yes, they do talk about haptics and augmented reality and more immersive experience. So they touch on it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I really need to dig into that keynote now. I'm sensing. So, pun intended, right? Sensing.
Yeah. Well, I do feel like I'm not a big fan of Facebook's products today. Lots of questions and concerns, but the idea of the metaverse, I'm a fan of. As a theme, I'm a fan of that, and I think the keynote's important to watch, not necessarily for Facebook itself, but for what could define the next 5 to 10 years of efforts from technology companies.
Yeah,
that's the way I looked at the keynote.
Spencer, Randall, we revisit this.
Oh, did we lose Dan?
We might have. He might be shifting to the metaverse now.
At least he's frozen with a good face.
We'll be back, or we maybe just disappeared. I am not entirely sure of that. But we will be back on Monday. I will be in Las Vegas. If you'd like to get in touch with us, info@7investing.com. And with that, Sam, why don't we end the show? Because hands
down, full metaverse.